Hello everyone, my name is Alec and I want to welcome you to episode 4 in our Hero Journey series. Last time, we ended the episode in a bit of a cliffhanger because I told you that we're getting to the ordeal, but we didn't talk about it. Today, we will cover stages 8 and 9, the ordeal and the reward. These two moments are the antechamber to the climax of the story, and if the first threshold mark where our hero couldn't go back to the ordinary world, this is the threshold to stay alive in this special world, so it is a sort of a doorway as well. As I mentioned, this is not the climax or it's not the boss, but it is the last test before the final showdown. So it is where the hero will acquire the tool or the skill that will allow them to actually defeat the final challenge. Of all the tests that the hero has faced, none of them have made him hit rock bottom until now. Vogler describes this phase as a black moment, and Campbell refers to it as the belly of the whale. Both indicate some bad news for our hero. This is also a good opportunity to humanize our hero. If during the story, the hero has presented itself as fearless, resolved, overpowered, here is where they will take a major hit. And this is where all the hidden flaws, doubts, and imperfections can come to light, and the hero must triumph in spite of those characteristics. So this is a critical moment in the story that will inform every decision that the hero makes from this point forward. Depending on the type of story that you're writing, the whale or the ordeal can look a bit different, and since we're working with a personal story, this can include loss, it can be personal loss or material loss, a major confrontation between characters, a previous ally or a friend, or the breakup of our relationship, and any event that makes the hero stop and wonder if they can achieve their goals anymore. In popular culture, this is usually signaled by a gray rain of depression or other ambient cues that indicate sadness, loss, or grief. So if you have seen The Emperor's New Groove, you know the scene where Cusco is crying under the rain in the middle of the jungle. Or going back to Atlantis, which I referenced in another video, this is when Rourke betrays Milo and decides to take the heart of Atlantis with him back to the surface. And, Milo realizes that he has been betrayed and that he has been played by the mercenaries the whole time. This is the moment where everything seems lost, right? And one key element of this stage, however, is that our hero must emerge stronger on the other side. He either receives help from allies or friends. Like in Milo's case, we have the doctor come to him and tell him that a wise person once told him that, once you hit bottom, the only way you can go is up. And that kind of gives him the courage that he needs to press on, right? And maybe they come up with a solution for their problems or just decide to go on and face the music, even if they are unsure of the outcome. And the ordeal is sometimes not the climax of the story. There is more to come, but you can think of it as the main event of the second act, the one in which the hero actually earns the title of hero. As the clouds clear up, the sun rises, our hero sees a light at the end of the tunnel, and the choice seems clear. They have to go on. If the inmost cave and the ordeal happened in an actual cave, they will probably come back with a sword or a ring or other physical object that can help them defeat the enemy. The reward is the object or knowledge the hero has fought throughout the entire journey to hold. So if the ordeal was a discussion with a friend or a breakup, the hero will come up stronger on the other side, maybe not physically, but emotionally. And in The Hobbit, the reward is both physical and abstract, right? We know that at the end of the showdown with Smaug, Bilbo gets hold of the Arkenstone, which is important symbolically, but he also realizes many things about the dwarves and about himself. There is a noticeable shift in his character before and after facing Smaug. And where there was once doubt, there is now resolve. The long march to face the enemy begins and the second act is concluded. So if we talk about my own journey, which I have been sort of building up as this episodes progress, I hinted that my ordeal or the belly of the whale included loss and sadness, so it's time to reveal what happened. As I mentioned, at this point in my life, I realized that I had to make things go in a different direction because I was not doing well. I got the feeling that maybe working so many hours and sacrificing other aspects of my life for money may not be worth it. And I noticed that I was putting my hobbies, my family, and my own mental health on the balance for the sake of a paycheck. Around that time, I also got an offer to edit a book as a freelancer. So editing and writing were things that I had always wanted to do, and much more than teaching in the kind of institution that I was working back then. I also wanted to focus on my own interests and aspirations, and I felt like I was missing out entirely on reunions and families and friends. So it probably would have taken me longer to realize what I had to do if it had not been for the ordeal. This was a Friday in October, and we were about to finish the school day when I got a message from my cousin who asked me how I was doing. And I was confused because they usually don't write to me. So I read the message, said, "How you doing?" I said, I'm doing good. And then they replied, "Have they not told you?" And at that moment, I was a little shook up because what hadn't they told me? I asked what had happened, and it turns out that my grandfather had passed away. I did not have a phone at that moment. I only had an iPod. And so at this moment of grief, right, and shock, I had to ask a colleague for a phone to call my father and ask what was going on. Why hadn't they told me that my grandfather had passed away? And he explained that it had just happened and they hadn't had time to send me a message yet. And the next few days were complex. My grandfather was a very important figure in my life. Things have changed now that after a few years of his passing, things are looking differently now. But at the moment, he was a very important figure in my life. And this was a very critical moment because they wouldn't allow me to stay with my family for the next following days because I had to go to work. And so that put a lot of things in perspective, right? I had to deal with the grief of losing someone, but also seeing my family suffer this loss. And on top of that, I couldn't even take the proper time to grieve the loss of, again, a very important person in my life. And this put a lot of things in perspective because I realized that I was doing a lot of things at the moment that maybe I didn't need to do. And the fact that my grandfather had died and I couldn't even be with my family, or I couldn't even process that loss the way that I needed, taught me that I needed to make some changes. It showed me that things had to go in a different direction. Otherwise, I was just putting all the wrong things in the forefront of my life. So it took me a few days to fully process what had happened. To this day, I actually still feel his loss. But during those critical times, his memory and his strength became a present element in my life. And my reward from this ordeal was the resolve to eventually quit this job that I had, that I was not getting what I needed out of. And I had been unsure whether I would risk not having a more stable income to pursue my own goals. But now my choice was clear. And considering where I am right now and the person I have become, this act of my story was without a doubt defining. It was a difficult and trying time, but the lessons I learned and the things I realized made me stronger and a little bit wiser. So this was only half of the fight, though. I may have made my choice, but I still needed to actually quit my job. I had decided to quit my job, but I hadn't quit my job yet because that would be the next challenge. That would be the next act in my journey, to actually face my boss and tell them that I wanted to quit. But that's going to have to wait until next week when we talk about the third act in what will probably be the last video of this series. So thank you all for watching. Remember that the sources and materials are linked in the description below, and that you can post any questions or thoughts in the comments. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you in class. Please stay safe. Take care of yourself.